Hello and welcome back. We are now moving into another project. We are in chapter 8, week 7, and I've basically opened up the previous file, assignment number 5, and renamed it assignment number 7. It's the exact same file from before, the hotel plan project, and we're basically going to review a lot of the commands we learned previous chapters regarding printing, or in this case, plotting, and paper space and model space, as long as making a template file for AutoCAD that will basically save settings for future use and doing page setups. Um, so here on my screen is the CAD file. And if I here at the bottom of the screen, you see I'm in model space. Model space is where you do most of your drafting. Ideally, you want to draft everything here at full scale. So if it's 37 feet long in real life, you draft it 37-foot long here in model space. There are two layout tabs here at the bottom, layout number 1, layout number 2. These come with AutoCAD. And if I click on layout number 1, you see here, there is a piece of paper on the screen. If I use my mouse wheel, pressing down, I can pan drawing. It moves the paper around. This is consider this a plot preview. Basically, it's a preview of what your drawing will look like when you produce a printout, either PDF or a hard copy. And this window here is a viewport that lets you see into model space. So if I'm basically in a place called paper space, that is basically considered a piece of paper. And within that piece of paper is a viewport that lets me look into model space. And in model space, I'm going to be printing and the paper. Now, obviously, this piece of paper here is not 37 foot long. The house is, but this piece of paper here is 8.5 by 11. And it just gives me a preview of what an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper might look like. Here at the bottom of the screen, you can see here the dotted lines here that basically are the margin of the piece of paper. So anything outside of the dotted line will not print. And then here, that window that called a viewport is a window into model space. Now, on your files, you might not see anything. It might be that your model space window here does not show the floor plan at all. So if I go back to layout number 1, if I double click inside this window, or I double click here where it says paper and it turns into model, I've activated the model space window here. Or I simply type MS for model space and PS for paper space as a quick way of going back and forth between the two. That activates the model space. It's as if I clicked on the model tab and I'm working there, but I'm basically inside the piece of paper. So here. So the first thing you need to do is make sure your drawing fills the screen. So you want to type Z for zoom, enter, and choose all or A or E, and make sure your drawing zooms out to the fullest size possible to fit the viewport. You see here in model space, the UCS icon, the user coordinate system icon, this guy here, says X and Y. It looks this way. If I flip to paper space or type PS, for example, enter, then you see here there's a little triangle here on the screen that denotes I'm in paper space, not model space any longer. That's a quick way of knowing where you're located. You can see here it says paper as well. So in paper space, I can control the sheet. Now, I also have the ability to take this viewport and make it bigger. So for example, I can click on the viewport and grab these grips and basically stretch them to be the size that I like. Hit escape to unselect. Now, before you do anything further, you need to make sure that the viewport is at the correct scale. This drawing is 37 feet long, but obviously you'll never print out a drawing that's 37 foot long. You're going to print out a drawing that's 8.5 by 11 at a scale that takes the drawing, the file, and shrinks it to fit on a piece of paper that's 8.5 by 11. In this case, if I click on the viewport, here it gives me the scale right here. It has some arbitrary number, 0.018. If I click on that menu, here are all the different scales that are available to you in AutoCAD. And normally for floor plans, you want to print these at a 1/4 inch scale, at least for residential. Click 1/4 inch scale here, and the drawing increases to a 1/4 inch scale. Escape. Now, obviously, if any portion of the drawing is cropped off or hidden by this viewport, then you want to make the viewport bigger so it's outside of the edges of the floor plan, because you don't want to clip off the floor plan. For example, if I click the viewport here and it was over here, for example, it'll cut off the floor plan. So you want to make sure that that viewport is big enough to show the entire floor plan. The next thing you want to do with it being selected and confirm that the scale here is accurate, you want to lock the viewport so that no one accidentally changes the scale. So for example, if I were to click and double click inside here and I use my mouse and I use the mouse wheel and zoom out a little bit, I've changed the scale. And there's no way to get back to the right scale by using your mouse wheel. At least it's very difficult, if not impossible. So what you want to do is make sure you choose the right scale here. Go back to paper space, double click outside the title block. And here, grab the viewport and force it to be the scale that you're after. In this case, we want a 1/4 inch scale. Once that's done, with the viewport highlighted, you want to use the padlock and lock the viewport. Now I cannot change that scale. I can't accidentally double click inside here and zoom out or into this view. I can basically zoom out the entire page basically now. So you've basically locked a person out from changing the scale, which is what you want, because this needs to be printed at a 1/4 inch scale going forward. I go back to paper space, PS, and here I have what I need: a drawing on the page that's formatted at a 1/4 inch scale that will print out correctly.